Hey, have you heard about Anchor? No? Well, you're losing out a lot. This is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain to you why. Number 1, it's actually free. Number 2, there's a whole series of creation tools that allows you to create, record, and edit your own podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will actually distribute your own podcast for you so that you don't have to do it yourself. And it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one single place. Okay, so now, what are you waiting for? Just download the free Anchor app and go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello and welcome to the Ironman Educator podcast. This is a show for early childhood educators and triathletes. It is all about kids' care and education and things in and around triathlons. Hi, I'm Robert. And in each week, midweek, I'll be making a series called the EC Peasy, which will cover everything about early childhood education. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the rewards and challenges of being a male early childhood educator. First of all, why would I want to join the early childhood sector? Well, the main thing is that I always wanted to teach since I graduated from my degree in IT. And when I tried to apply for a teaching position with MOE, they've never called me up for any interview. And this went on for almost a decade. So every single year I tried to apply for a position with them. Then it was only during a career fair organized by MBS, Marina Bay Sands, looking for various positions for their casino and the whole hotel, the whole suite of the services that they offer in the MBS itself. I actually stumbled upon this booth, this early childhood booth by PCF, the PAP Community Foundation. Back then they only have kindergarten for children. Then by some coincidence or pure sheer luck, I was talking to this guy whom I spoke with for almost 2 hours, standing there discussing about the different aspects of early childhood and what's my aspiration like. So I didn't know back then he was the head of the PCF. Then when we finished discussing, I didn't even bring my cert, by the way. So when we finished discussing, I thought we were just chit-chatting and then I was just about to leave. Then he asked somebody from the booth itself, apparently that lady was from the HR department. And he told her to give me a form. Then I was asking him, what form? Then he said, oh, it's a form. You're actually employed. I want you in my team. That's what he said. I was like, huh? Who are you? I asked him. Then he told me that he was the head of the PCF. I was so shocked. People usually ask the same question over and over again for male early childhood educators, and for me it's no different. So my answer will be the same as any of those male educators around. I love kids. I love to teach kids, especially of those early years and early childhood years. And because back then I was more of working in another industry, more like totally unrelated to education. So the head of the PCF actually asked me if I want to try out to have a trial in a center to see whether does this line suit me or not. So we kind of arranged this one, actually 2-day session in one of these kindergarten in Canberra, and I happened to encounter one incident that made up my mind to go into this sector. It was when I was introduced to a group of children. I believe those were about 4 to 5 year old, or no, it was actually a 3 to 4 year old. That there was this one girl, when she saw me, she came straight towards me, and all she did was she cried and she came and hugged me. So I didn't know what happened to her. I didn't ask the background or whatever. My natural instinct was to give her a hug and hold her. I believe she actually needed that, which I felt better because I felt good because the child actually calmed down. But apparently the teachers actually didn't want that to happen. So when that actually happened, the teachers actually brought her aside, and she continued to cry, and the teachers actually asked me to move out of the site for a while. Then they will try to explain to me later on. Okay, when the session ended, the teacher actually came and told me that it was a good thing that I was around because I provided a comfort for the child. But because of the way I handled it, I wasn't EC trained, early childhood trained, so I used my paternity instinct to actually give her a hug and all these comforting words. That would be detrimental for her to calm down because she will become very reliant on my presence, which is not what they wanted. Then they further explained why this child was so upset when she saw me, or she cried out when she saw me, is because her daddy is most of the time not in Singapore itself. He's always outstation, so she actually missed him a lot. So when she saw a male figure, she took me as the father figure for her. It is there and then that I realized that this sector, this age group, actually has a lot of such cases around. It's just that we don't really see it and we don't really acknowledge it, because usually for this age group, people will have this impression that the more important role is the mother figure, or at least the female is the more nurturing one that actually brings up the children at this age group. So I became more determined to come into this sector because I know I can make a difference, and that's what I want to do. That's why I wanted to become a teacher. But I didn't know that which age group is suitable for me to actually help kids, especially the young kids. Before we look at what are the challenges that I face when I joined as a male early childhood educator, there are some reasons why males don't really get involved in the lives of children, especially these young children below the age of 7. One of the reasons why it is so is because childcare is actually commonly viewed as an extension of the role of women as mothers. So it's always a motherly figure that is essential for the young children. So in our society, we tend to see women as the person who always stays home and cares for the children, and because of this, society actually considers early childhood education field to be one for women itself. That's why you don't see a lot of male educators. And women are perceived to be doing a perfectly good job because most guys, they don't really feel that they are in the place in this sector, because they find that this job is more of a feminine kind of job, but they fail to realize that there are different challenges which guys are usually looking for in their jobs, which are more evident in the other traits. And because of this feminine nature of the job itself, so a lot of guys felt that only those guys who are deemed as not the real man or very gayish kind of person will come into this sector. But I beg to differ. That was a very, very old perception, because back in the olden days, teachers in the childcare centers, they were deemed as nannies or babysitters. So basically, when they look at this sector, they don't even want to consider it, because they thought that this role is best suited for women, and they don't want to be associated as being a gay because of this reason. And also, one reason that why guys are absent in this sector is because a lot of times people would feel that women are perceived to be safe to work with young children, whereas if any man were to come into this sector, they are usually being deemed as probably a predator to the children or even a pedophile. And one final point why male educators are really very scarce in this sector is because of the pay. Back then, the pay was really bad, really low even for women itself. It's actually one of the low paid jobs around in the market, and also it was deemed as a low status occupation. So guys are usually seen as the breadwinner for the family. So coming into this field which does not promise any high salary, sort of like discourage guys to be to stay away from this sector itself. So now let's look at my challenges. For me, being a male educator, the stigma is always there for any new parent who came into contact with me. It started when I was a teacher to a new class for a new year, and the parents were very skeptical when I was introduced to the class itself. They were wondering the very sight of me, whether can I portray a sense of security to them or to their children, especially to the girls. So my first year with my own class was the most memorable one, as after when I introduced myself to the parents and to the children, the next day half the class actually requested to switch to the next class, or some of them even threatened to withdraw from the center itself just because I'm a male educator there. As I went along with my course, because back then I was actually working half day and attending a course at the end of the day, and I started to realize that there were a lot of limitations as to what male educators could do. A lot of times female educators, they thought that by giving a hug or a kiss to children is something perfectly normal, that they can do it anytime and any way they like. But for my case, or any of those male educators, this is a big no-no, because this will definitely give a wrong impression to all the parents. And although I have been a very helpful child at home, because back then I had a lot of younger cousins, baby cousins, nephew, nieces, and I have been helping out with the routine at home, things like changing diapers or bringing them to the toilets. This in my family is perfectly normal. So you would say that I'm very proficient in all this routine care stuff, but this is a big, huge no-no for a male educator. For male educators like myself, we can't even shower or even bring children to the toilet. And as we all know that a lot of times it's always the mothers who deal with the teachers themselves. So for my case, is the mothers will tend to deal with me, and they will discuss with me about the progress of the children, the well-being of the children and stuff like that. And a lot of times they feedback to the daddies, and sometimes male educators tend to get into trouble because of this situation, because to the daddies it would seem that a male teacher is being very close with their wives. And why is that so? For me, there's no exception, because I too have to explain myself why I'm talking to the mothers. And those are the two challenges, and there's one more aspect, which is colleagues itself. So working with a female dominated sector is a bit challenging, because me being new, very new, I do not know where do I begin, where do I look for my materials, how do I start, how do I prepare my teaching aids and stuff like that. And I often ask around for help, and for some reason female teachers, I'm not sure what is the real reason behind it, but they were really not so forthcoming, not so eager to help male educators out. So until to this day, I have issues processing what is going on. So you can see those are the challenges that male educators face, especially for myself, and that's what I experienced. So you ask me, where are my rewards then? Well, I didn't stay on for this sector for 10 years for no reason, right? So especially for my first year, although I told you that it was very challenging for half a class wanting to withdraw, right? So what happened was, because my principal managed to convince the parents to stay on and give me a try, so I tried very, very hard, looking around for resources myself, looking for things that are different, that teachers would usually not do, and provide a lot of added value knowledge to the children, so the kids will have a lot of fun, and the kids learn a lot under my care. So much so that at the end of the year, the children from the other class, because each level usually have 2 classes, so parents from the other class, they actually requested for their children from the other class to actually come over to my side, which my principal kindly declined their request. So yeah, it was actually something very sweet success for me. This interns actually, for me, that's where I started to believe one simple fact: if I can produce happy children, the parents are happy, and once the parents are happy, they will treat me well as well, and in turn I will be happy too. So it's a kind of a vicious cycle, you would say. So somebody has to start somewhere just to make things right. So people tend to ask me, what are your hopes and dreams for this sector in Singapore especially? So for me, I feel that parents should give every male educator a chance to prove themselves worthy of the profession, similar to the opportunities that ladies were given in the male-dominating professions like engineering or all those very technical professions. Male educators can actually add value to the education of young children, such as resilience, persistence, and even moral values, by accepting what male educators can provide to the sector. And the best part is, having the presence of male model in the classroom can be actually very beneficial in many ways, because male educators have a direct impact to the childcare classroom by providing a gender balance. So with the male educators, we tend to promote a more active and very physical environment in the child, whereas for female they tend to foster a very nurturing, calm, and positive environment. So it's a win-win situation. And then guys and ladies have different ways of caring styles and behaviors, so which is very beneficial for kids as well. One thing is also the children are able to experience and observe the positive relationship between the guys, the male educators, and the female educators. So for that, children experience a very positive male role model, which sometimes, and for some kids, they may not experience it at home, especially when father figure is absent in their lives, either due to single parenthood or the fathers are usually working late and leaving home early. So you will ask me what inspired me the most and what my aspiration for this sector is like. So for me, is the children and their families who trusted me and have faith in whatever changes or activities I do with the children to make a difference in their lives, and to see the children grow and develop in their learning journey. And also my dream is to see more male educators coming into the sector, either through better remuneration, and it's more out of their passion and determination to make some changes in children's lives. So I would hope to actually motivate more male educators to come into this sector by sharing more through things like this podcast, my personal experiences, and the skills and knowledge to make an impact in children's lives. So the only thing that kept me going throughout this sector is the constant feedback and suggestions from the parents, and most of all is their acknowledgement of my efforts and contributions to the community. The recognition also from the general public and the agency also made my time worth to be in this sector. Finally, for all of you male potential educators out there who are looking to come into this preschool sector, I would say one advice to you: come in, be different, be unique, be yourself, and think out of the box. Well, that's the end of the show. Thank you for being such a wonderful listener and choosing to listen to my podcast. I'll put the links to the things I've discussed in this episode in the description below. And you can go to the Ironman Educator website at www.theironmaneducator.com to find out more exciting experiences I had. If you enjoyed this podcast as much as I do, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and catch me in the next episodes.